Greetings and salutations. Thank you for lending an ear to The Voice of the Times this Tuesday, November 3, 2020. For today's editorial, the Ombudsman should explain his refusal to release the President's Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, or SALN. In the article on the accountability of public officers, Article 11, Section 17, the Constitution requires of every public officer and employee a verified declaration of assets, liabilities, and net worth upon assumption of office, and as often as may be required by law. Further, the declaration shall be disclosed to the public in the manner provided by law. On February 20, 1989, Congress passed the Enabling Law Republic Act, or RA 6713, or the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Subsequently, on April 21, 1989, Congress approved the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, for RA 6713. Under Rule 7 on Public Disclosure, the IRR states explicitly, Section 1. Every official and employee, except those who serve in an official honorary capacity without service credit or pay, temporary laborers, and casual or temporary and contractual workers, shall file under oath their statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth, and the disclosure of business interest and financial connections, including those of their spouses and unmarried children under 18 years of age, living in their households in the prescribed form. Significantly, under the same Rule 7, the IRR states that the statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth, and the disclosure of business interest and financial connections shall be filed by the 1. President, Vice President, and constitutional officials with the National Office of the Ombudsman, and 2. Senators and representatives with the Secretaries of the Senate and the House of Representatives, respectively. Justices with the Clerk of Court of the Supreme Court. Judges with the Court Administrator, and national executive officials such as members of the Cabinet, undersecretaries, and assistant secretaries, including the Foreign Service and heads of government-owned or controlled corporations with original charters and their subsidiaries and state colleges and universities, with the office of the President. We are constrained to cite these provisions of law because of a piece of information we have just learned from a colleague in the media, namely columnist Marichu Villanueva of the Philippine Star, that Ombudsman Samuel Martirez, unlike his distinguished predecessors at the Office of the Ombudsman, remains adamant not to release a copy of the 2019 Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth of President Rodrigo Duterte. Villanueva noted that the President has faithfully released the details of his SALN for the past 3 years of his term. But now, with Ombudsman Martirez's differing interpretation of the issue of the SALN, under the law on the ethical standards and conduct of public officials, the President has been seemingly painted into a corner. Apparently, repeated media requests for copies of the latest SALN of the President are being tossed back and forth between the Ombudsman's office and Malacanang. Martirez earlier issued new guidelines on the request for copies of a government official's SALN, decreeing that release would be limited only to requests from the declarant himself or herself and from government officers conducting investigations. He defended the restriction of public access to the SALN of officials, saying that the SALN was supposedly being weaponized against government officials. This has raised many eyebrows. Why the adamant refusal to release a public document? And why is there a recourse to interpretation of the SALN law when this is not a case before the courts? Martirez, a former member of the Supreme Court, is not being asked to interpret a point of law. As Ombudsman, he is now a member of the executive branch. It may be that he is raising here a genuine question about the provision on the public disclosure of the SALN. If so, the Ombudsman should explain his position. He should explain to the public the reason for his unyielding action and his evidently peculiar interpretation of the SALN provision in the law and the Constitution. The law is very clear and explicit. Public disclosure is a mandate. The Ombudsman is only a custodian for a time of the SALN of the President among several officials. And that's the editorial for Tuesday, November 3, 2020. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to our digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and listen to the Voice of the Times.